So again, I want to reiterate my gratitude that you guys joined us today, and thank you to the previous presenters. That was a really, for those of us who teach online courses, it's really fascinating to hear what's going on other campuses. A couple of us, as you finished up, were sort of muttering under our breath, well, we need a center like that. So thank you for doing what you do, and let's just carbon copy you and do stuff over here. All right, we'll talk. So hopefully what I have to contribute might be insightful to others as well in that regard, because I am taking the perspective of a professor of online courses. I also teach in-person courses and hybrid courses, but this work in particular refers entirely to fully online coursework. So I wanted to put that out there first. And the title of my presentation today is Virtually Disconnected: Student Self-Perceptions in Online Learning Context. And it does mirror some of the statements you guys were making regarding the preconceived notions that students have about going into an online class. Oftentimes, they do have a tendency to be relatively uninformed about what will occur to them during the course of the semester. But further, I wanted to, given my social science bent, consider whether or not the issue of learning style even figures into the choice that students make when enrolling into these classes. Because they might say so on the surface, but when you ask them, practically speaking, they don't necessarily go there. So I hope everybody brought their Dramamine for the Prezi. So we know why college students have a tendency to enroll for online courses, but they don't necessarily have any experiential foundations for doing that. A lot of the students that I spoke to for the purposes of the study were first-time online users for fully online classes. Some of them had some hybrid experience, but for the most part, they were first-timers all around. And a lot of them would tell you, oh, it was a schedule thing, I really like the notion of being able to log on and do my coursework whenever I want. Some of them had a difficult time commuting, very similar to what you guys said. A lot of our students are on campus and taking these courses as well, but some of our students did the on-campus thing, realized the hardship was a little much to bear, and are trying this instead because the commute has become a hardship. So a little twist on that. Also, they believe that they can do this in their underwear, so they feel like comfort might be something that they're allotted if they take an online course. Also, perception of self-pacing. They feel like, you know what, I don't have to do things when I'm told. I'm just given a deadline, and I just take my pace as I go. Now, mind you, this is a perception. They seem to miss that whole part about deadlines, but they do have this tendency to believe that they'll have this kind of flexibility, and to a certain extent, they're correct. And then they have a perception of ease. For whatever weird reason, they believe in their hearts that online courses will be easier than in-person ones. Well, that's silly, but whatever. So, given the literature that's out there, and I'll take you through some of that in a moment, it doesn't seem particularly clear if students are making the decision to take online courses in addition to those reasons that I just mentioned, weighing their self-understanding as thinkers and learners. So we do bat around the terminology of learning style, right? Or what kind of learner are you? And we have a thought about ourselves as a certain type. Well, I'm a visual person and I'm an auditory person. And likelihood is you don't really know, but you know what you're comfortable with. The question then is, does that figure into your decision regarding taking an online course? One would think it might, should. But I wanted to seek out the answers to that question, in particular to my students. I also wanted to know if those self-perceptions changed at all during the course of taking the course. So, in short, the purpose of my study is to do just that, is to look at self-perceptions of students that are enrolled in fully online courses, so we have to make that distinction, because a hybrid thing is a totally different ballgame. And I wanted to see their attitudes going into the course, so what they thought of themselves as learners prior to beginning the course. And this was especially notable in my first-timers. And then once I get this data, the hope is that you can sort of get a sense for the perceptions and how they may impact the performance, right? In turn, how does that as a professor impact me and the way that I plan the way that I teach? So some of the really brief summary of the data that's out there and the research findings, we do know that students have a positive outlook on all things tech. Again, they don't necessarily have to have any experiential proof. They just like it. So they do feel like it's good to have web enhancement or online anything. And further, they feel much better if they have good feelings of support during the process of engaging with those modalities. They also feel like they have, how do I put this? A student of mine actually put this really well too. If you have a good outlook going in, things will go well for you, right? Positive in, positive out. And this goes for all things, but particular to online learning. If you feel like your expectations are high and you are a good person for the online modality, then you are likely to do better and you are likely to stay engaged more frequently throughout the semester. Now, the rate of growth in this kind of enrollment is pretty staggering. We've noticed since 2002 and up to at least 2011, I mean, it's a little dated, but it's not that bad. I mean, we're in the decades. But we've gone from 9.6%, and this is nationwide, to 32% of college students enrolled in at least one online course. And this sort of, in a microcosmic way, echoes the way that you guys were describing your online enrollment. So yeah, it's growing, and to reflect that, a lot of administrations are saying, oh my gosh, we totally need to offer more online courses because everybody's into this. So you're gonna see this getting more and more popular, even beyond what it is now. I know in my department alone, people are starting to take on teaching online courses for the first time because there's that much of a demand. So, but that's for another day, because, you know, a lot of us need help on the professorial side. So, a little bit more data, students who take online courses don't necessarily do so for their learning styles. In fact, it was kind of a pain to try to find studies that looked specifically at consideration of learning styles when it came to making these choices. There were some, but very limited compared to the other stuff that's out there on online learning. Mostly people get on board because of convenience and flexibility of schedule. Also, a major concern for online students is time management. Now, time management is a concern for any student. But for online students, there's a particular need to be aware of your capacity for managing your time and staying on top of your schedule. And any online student, especially first-timers, will tell you they get hit in the face pretty hard by that reality relatively early in the process. They don't expect it to be as daunting as it is, but sure enough, the first due date rolls around and they're blindsided. I put this up here because this has been the governing theory in terms of understanding learning styles. This is Gardner's theory, some of you may be familiar. Found a pretty wheel, so there you go. What it means to understand learning styles in this way from a teaching perspective is to think, okay, so I want to be able to hit as many of these learners as humanly possible in effective ways. You have to get creative when you're doing this online. So for instance, if you have somebody who is kinesthetically oriented, I mean, unless they're like gonna buy the new Nintendo and gonna be mobile, you're gonna have to figure out ways to get a kinesthetically oriented person involved in what you're doing online. Auditory, easy enough. You can find videos, visually, auditory, etc. But some of these, not so much. I don't know what to do about the nature people. I'm not even gonna try. But Gardner is only one, and I put him here because, let's face it, he's kind of the big name, and a lot of people have had exposure to him. But when it comes to online learning, there's another theory that gets a little bit more press. And that would be the Felder-Silverman model. The Felder-Silverman is easier to break down in terms of how you present offerings to people in online contexts. So you see these quadrants, right? You've got active or reflective, visual or verbal, sequential or vocal, sensing or intuitive. So a little less dramatic than the little color wheel from before and a lot fewer options. This is sort of an either-or situation. And you yourself could tease yourself out in here, like which one of these suits me a bit more, and so on, to clarify it a bit for our purposes. If you're considering the Felder-Silverman model, you consider things like, okay, how does a student prefer to get their information? Sensing or or intuitive? Visual or verbal? How do you prefer the presentation itself to be packaged? Active or reflective? How do you prefer to process that information? What kind of thinker are you? So this is a very cognitive piece here. And then finally, the sequential global. This is an organizational, sort of structural preference. So this is another way to look at it, and a lot of people have started to gravitate toward this model when they're structuring the means by which they deliver online coursework. So thinking about both of those models and seeing the data that's out there, I sojourned forth. So this is an ongoing study, so don't get your hopes up about an end. It's 35 students, but whatever, that's a good start. And this is qualitative research, so I had to like read things, and it took a while. So this is actually a pretty hefty number. I decided to go with these 35 students. These are students that are currently in my 2 sections. I've got 2 psychology courses online. They're all very lovely people. And they didn't quite, I mean, this is relatively representative, certainly in psychology courses. We tend to have more females than males in the coursework. So 21 female, 14 male. Now, they did complete this survey last month. A couple of them trickled in like last week, but I let it slide. I liked the data. And they were, well, let's face it, I bribed them. It was an extra credit assignment. So they were very eager to help. But they were, to my great joy and surprise, frankly, pretty verbose. So their answers, which I left the big field for, were lengthy, and they were really reflective about the questions I was asking. And I'm going to take you through those questions in a bit. The option was, all right, so here's this field, and you can write like 3 words if you want to be a jerk, or you can write a big fat paragraph if you're feeling, emotional about this. And they did a lot of them. Questions included items addressing students' self-concepts as learners, because that's kind of what I was after. But in addition to that, I also asked questions like, what do you think of your communication with your professor in the course? And what are your expectations for your grade? Little, pieces of candy for me. But for this research, these were the questions that are highlighted, and they're a little teeny here, so I'll just take you through them a bit. So I wanted to know what kind of student they consider themselves to be in general. So this would include, by umbrella default, before you're enrolled, like who do you see yourself as student-wise? Then did you think an online course would be easy for you upon enrollment, and why? Then I asked, why did you choose to take the online course? What was the initial motivation? Oddly enough, nobody answered me with multiple reasons. They just gave me one solid, flat reason. I kind of expected more, but they would give me one reason and then talk like a lot about that reason, which is fine. What does taking an online course make you think about yourself as a student? I wanted to consider if there were any transformative properties in the process of going through an online course, particularly for first-timers. What's your favorite thing about taking an online course? What's your least favorite thing? Right? As long as it wasn't me, I was willing to read it. And then down here, have you learned anything about yourself in the process of taking an online course? That's sort of like the post-mortem. So I asked these questions, 10 of them in total, and then once I got the data, my analysis was comprised of convergent theme analysis and it's a grounded theory analysis method. I actually got it from Kathy Sharmas. And we, in order to do this grounded theory analysis, you do multiple readings of the data. You go through, some people do a shorthand where they'll do a word search. I mean, that's the down and dirty version of it, but you can do a word search and then see what words are popping out throughout all of the data. But I tend to read it in narrative style, so I'll chunk it in a big fat narrative page worth of data. And then once you do those several readings, you end up getting convergent themes that emerge through the readings of the text. Sometimes you can get a secondary or tertiary reader. Since this is ongoing, I haven't quite gone and done that. Nobody was dumb enough to say yes to me anyway, so I'm gonna wait until I get more data. So now my results. I found 5 major converging themes. Now I call them converging themes because they're convergent between all of my participants, meaning that these themes in particular were shared on some level by every single participant that replied. Now that's not to say that I can generalize this beyond, but I can generalize it to my 35 students, and that's a start. Also, each theme was depicted in every single place that I saw data at least one time. Sometimes it showed up more than once. But it made this list of 5 if it showed up in everybody's response at least once. And then the themes illustrate specifically learner self-concept as it relates only to online class experience, but you saw bleed over into, well, this is the kind of person I am. I mean, you're not going to avoid that, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, obviously. So here are my themes. The first theme was high levels of confidence as learners. This was coming from the first general question, how do you see yourself as a learner? I've also added for each of these themes an example of a quote from one of the students. At first, you should have seen the slides. I had like 4 or 5 quotes to prove this, but so this is one. I consider myself a multitasker as a student and in life. I balance the responsibility of head of household, holding down 3 jobs, being a full-time student. I'm already exhausted reading about this guy. So, and then a little bit more at the end, which I found interesting. I didn't get into my dream school, but I also never gave up and believe things happen for the better. So they're trying to depict themselves as somebody who's very tenacious, somebody who's able to do multiple things at once, right? And this particular student puts student first, right? So as a student, this is who I am. And then on top of that, here's my day. But as a student, this is reflected as well. You see that in a lot of the responses. And some of them were a little bit more academic in their bent. The second theme was a high outcome of the high outcome expectations at the beginning of the class. They believed the lowest like predicted grade was a B+. It's like, okay, go ahead. But a lot of them were A's and A+. I think I'm going to get an A in this course. I'm going to get an A+ in this course. I like this one. This one just has it down. I think I deserve an A. I'm a student that always finishes my assignments on time. I maintain high GPA at all times. And I have high grade in quiz taking and essay writing. I mean, okay, I can't argue with that. But a lot of them, I mean, every single person, very, very high expectations. Even the ones that were like, I think I'll get an A- because I kind of missed a deadline once. That's an A-, kid, come on. Theme number 3, convenience as the primary motivator of choice. Everybody talking about how awesome and convenient online courses are. At the same time, they're talking about how inconvenient it is to really stay on top of the schedule, but so convenient. So that perception, even in the midst of taking the course, is still prevalent. This one is like, I choose to work online. This is like that other one that talked about being super multitasking. 2 twin 2-year-olds, yeah. 40 hours a week working, don't have children, I don't have childcare to attend evening or weekend classes. Online classes give me the opportunity to get an education. Without them, I would not be able to go to school. That's great. How much time do I have? Okay, appreciate it. So my 4th theme, online courses as self-affirming. Like I said, there were previous positive outlooks upon taking the course or enrolling for the course. Having gotten built into the course, everybody feels like, oh yeah, this is totally great for me. Not only did people feel like it was a good fit, but people felt like they grew during the process of undertaking the course. So after taking an online course, I realized that I've become more of a responsible student, completing all of my tasks, and I'm good at working under pressure. Which denotes the fact that you were under pressure. But it's something to consider. This is seen as a growth step. So whatever hardship the student faced in the process of taking on an online course for the first time, and this is a first timer, they saw it as a building block and they saw it as a growth point. So this happened a lot. Oh, I realized what I'm capable of. Another really powerful quote that I kept getting was, I learned that I can teach myself. Like that was the predominant feeling among these students. I can teach myself, and that was so empowering to me that I can learn things on my own. But the words teach myself came up tons. And finally, my last theme that was really, really popular was a focus on work ethic. And I had one student in 35 that mentioned learning style. To the question, what kind of student are you? One student said, well, I'm kind of a visual learner. Everybody else totally missed the boat on that. And I didn't want to feed them, what's your learning style? Because then it gets weird. So one person brought it up, but everybody brought up, I'm a hard worker. And this is what I do well. As a student, I work hard. This one is a good example. I consider myself the kind of student that puts a lot of effort in doing my work. Sometimes I get overwhelmed when I have too many things, too much things. I try to always follow my professor's instructions and rules. So the self-perception of being a hard worker is apparently that which will make it more likely that you will feel comfortable going into an online course rather than, is this a good modality for you to learn in? And so, and I have sat down with students who are contemplating taking an online course, well, similarly to what you guys do, and they don't have a clue. And when you sit down and talk to them, it always goes down to, well, I don't have time to be on campus, or I've got this, that, or the other going on, but I'm a hard worker. And that's the validating point that they carry with them in order to succeed. Now, I'm not going to knock it, because apparently it's going pretty well. These students are, for the most part, really high performers and are doing well on the course. And you can't be a total slouch in my online course. I give them a lot of work. A couple of them mentioned, I didn't realize there was going to be so much writing. I was like, well, we're not Skyping, so yeah, we're going to have to write it for me to see what you're doing. But they did say things like, you know, sometimes I feel overwhelmed. Sometimes it feels like I'm getting behind. But then I work hard, right? So nowhere in the data, except for that one point that I just told you about, did I see anything about learning styles, which got me thinking, what if they were thinking about learning styles, and would that make an impact? So that's kind of the next step. And I don't know, at this point I sort of feel like if there is a center on your campus, that might be something that they could address with students to think about prior to enrollment. Or if the onus is on the professor, maybe you think about having your students undertake an exercise at the beginning of the semester to consider what their learning styles are prior to jumping in full hog and taking on this online course, so that maybe they can strategize a bit better. But for now, and this is a bit of a bad color for the background, I apologize, but for now the findings seem to confirm that practical motivators outweigh learning style concerns when students are choosing to get involved with an online course. And from a psychologist's perspective, I have to say, it's a little concerning, because if you know that you have problems with time, an online course will murder you. So it's important to have that self-understanding prior to going in if you have any expectation of success. Also, I think for the meantime, and certainly on this campus where we don't have a center like you guys, instructors have to take this onto themselves. And so if they see that their students are primarily motivated by convenience, how are you going to tailor your coursework to be understanding of potential limitations that are in place, given that never entered the student's mind when they enrolled for your course? And then I think furthermore, how do you engage with your online students in a conversation about these issues so that they can be on top of it, which in turn can help them have better experiences in their online coursework? You want them to be repeat offenders. If they're good at this modality, then more power to them, right? And we want to help them. A lot of them are taking online courses because they have to, right? And if that's the case, they're not going to stop having to, which means they're going to have to take more online courses. We have to help them be better at it. So this might be a step in the right direction. At any rate, I'm going to keep taking more data up and bribing them some more, and hopefully get a lot more data points. And in the meantime, probably also try to finagle some of my colleagues who are also teaching online to steal information from their students. They'll say yes, I'm nice enough. But that's what I've got for you. And there are my citations, and thank you very much.
Thank you, teacher. We have 1 minute if you have any burning questions. Otherwise, if you have more burning questions and you want to have a discussion, I know Professor McSpadden will be here until the next session. So what are your questions? She answered everything. Wonderful. It's like my student.
I'm amazing.
How many of those students knew they were signing up for a fully online course?
Almost all of them. There were, so one of those is an intro course, and the other one is a slightly higher level course. The intro course, I had 3 students who did not know, and the upper level course, I had 1, which, not so bad. Not so bad, all things considered, right? I've had worse. Yeah, but once they figured it out, they kind of took a couple of breaths, the panic subsided, and they were fine. On previous occasions, I've had students drop the course out of sheer panic, but not this time. They figured it out and they went with it, and so far so good. Yeah.
How well, based on learning, right? Like, where do they contact to get more information that's not you about the online course? You know, they like sign up and like, they're like, who do they contact?
So we have a couple of places that people attempt to contact, but the problem is the different things that take place in an online course tend to be vastly different from course to course, right? So for instance, with my course, I use Revel via Pearson. So a lot of their stuff is done on that component, and they would have to go to their support. So they go to Pearson support. If they have a problem with Blackboard, then oftentimes they'll try to go to somebody here on campus, but sometimes they'll be redirected to CUNY Central. Right? And I'm sure you guys experience that too. So that will happen. When it comes to the course in general, they come to me and I do my damnedest, but again, it depends. But they don't have a centralized location, in other words, certainly here on campus, that they can just land on.
Very good question, very good point that you're raising. I just want to conclude, at BNCC, you've got a president who's committed to making sure that you have e-learning. I don't think we have the same thing on the other campuses. Let me just put it that way. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Please, you have 5 minutes to go on to your next session. Thank you.